Okay, I've started recording. Welcome everybody, good morning. Welcome to the In Control webinar about the National Network. We'll be taking you through a short presentation which Martin Routledge will go through, after which we'd really love to have your thoughts and your ideas and comments. There are two ways of making your views known. There's a question box that you should see on your panel that you can click on and type a question or make a comment, and there's also a chat box where we can pick up any comments or questions that you have, or if you prefer you can email us any comments or opinions at admin@incontrol.org.uk, and I'll put the email address on the end of the webinar so that you can see that. Okay, Martin, over to you.
Thanks, Julie. Can I just check before I start that my volume is okay?
Yeah, it sounds fine.
Can you hear okay? Okay, great, thanks. Morning, everybody. Again, welcome to this conversation about the proposed National Network for Self-Directed Support. As Julie says, I'll talk you through the background to this, in outline what we're proposing to do, and then some questions that we're looking to answer ourselves and with friends and colleagues, and then next steps and any questions. So over the past few months, In Control, our trustees, our staff, our friends and colleagues and people in our network have been exploring what's the most useful thing that we can do in the future. We've been in existence since 2003. We feel like we've played a quite significant role in policy development in relation to self-directed support. We've worked very hard with people and families to provide direct advice and support for people to improve the self-direction they're able to get. But we find ourselves in these really difficult times very, very frustrated, really. Julie wrote a blog that she called the rhetoric reality gap a few months ago, and it got a very big response from people. Essentially, we are finding that even though our advice line and the support service that we offer and the connections to our partners, network, friends in places around the country are helpful, we can only really provide assistance and support for relatively small numbers of people, perhaps about 500 people a year. So that's on a continuum from somebody contacting our advice line for some information through to us getting directly involved at a local level to try and improve a situation around a person or a family or a situation. We're very happy and pleased that when we do get involved like that, we almost always are able to support people to get an improvement, whether that's a disabled person, an older person, a family, and indeed the local professionals and managers in healthcare and education organisations. But as I say, we do feel that we're only able to impact on a very small number of people, and we, like I'm sure you, are finding that many thousands of people need better support in order to self-direct, and that happens at a local level, of course. So that's led us to talk and think and have conversations with people about what we might be able to do about that. People will have seen this Guardian article, I'm sure, that we contributed to around the crisis that we're experiencing. The kind of rhetoric reality gap that is happening is found very much in the findings of our POET survey, where we asked people and families. So just a few slides here to give you some examples. In the Care Act, it's a key thing about personal budgets is that you have control over the resources that you're allocated for your care and support. But very often people are telling us that they're not experiencing that support, that it's being denied them. And this is true both for people who are receiving support linked to the Care Act and people, families, who are receiving support to the Children and Families Act. Very often people are saying that the rhetoric of the transfer of power and control to people is not realised in reality. So, Julie, do you want to move on to the next? Is it a bit stuck?
They're just slowly going through with a bit of a lag between. It's the joys of webinars.
Okay, all right. So why do we want this proposed national network for self-directed support? Which, by the way, we might come up with a better name for at some point. Perhaps we can offer a prize for the best name for this. So these problems are being experienced clearly. Our experience and that of people that speak to us is that very often, unfortunately, local public bodies, including councils and CCGs, are not effectively supporting people to maximise potential. We're finding user-led and advocacy organisations are under severe pressure, financial and otherwise, sometimes even feeling that due to the nature of the way they're commissioned and so on, their ability to pressure and encourage local systems to improve and be limited. But there is local support quite often in local areas around self-directed support, but again, our feeling is that this could benefit from external help of various kinds. Very often people are able to provide information and advice, but again, very often our experience is that that isn't enough to get a result, and that people need direct support, and sometimes they need the kind of clout and authority of a national organisation that's connected nationally to significant other organisations and even policymakers. As far as In Control is concerned, we feel, as I say, that we've got 13 years of experience and expertise, but that we want to deploy that more strategically. In effect, we want to try and see whether we can amplify and multiply the impact of what we do, primarily by giving that away to others. So the question is, how do we go about doing that? So what's our approach to that? So here's essentially, in just short outline, what we're proposing to do. We're proposing with partners to set up a kind of core national support to assist local groups and networks. This is obviously very much voluntary, so we would need to be invited by local people. And if we are invited, we would want to help develop networks for self-directed support where they don't exist, but where there are people who are willing and able to put effort into it, and to build strength where they do. We think we would do this very much on a place-by-place basis, working out with local people and organisations what they need and how they want to go about this. So there'd be no one-size-fits-all approach to this. So we want to, in addition to supporting local networks to be stronger, we would want them to link those local networks for mutual support. And we'll talk a little bit later on about how that might be done. We very much want to work alongside other relevant initiatives. We're not at all interested in any kind of a rivalry with other organisations or groups on this. We want this to be a national network that's collectively owned, not owned by In Control, but with In Control playing a part. For example, we had some very useful recent conversations with the Alzheimer's Society about their charter of personal budgets in relation to people with dementia and their families, and about how what we're doing can work well alongside what they're doing. But that's just one example. We're aware of many others. We very much want to add value to existing efforts. We don't want to duplicate anything that's already being done at a local level, and we definitely don't want to compete for local resources. We don't intend to do that. We want to do this in a way in which local networks don't cost anything from us to those local networks. So a little bit more detail about what this might involve. And again, remember what I said, that this is just an outline, and we're not talking about a one-size-fits-all. We would look to tailor this with local groups and organisations. So at a local level, we think some kind of volunteer local coordinator or group would need to be in place, and that would bring local people and groups together who are already playing a part in supporting people to self-direct. So that might include local youth-led organisations, advocacy organisations, local branches of groups that are supporting particular groups of people like Alzheimer's Society or Age UK or others, who've got an interest in supporting people to use personal budgets and self-directed support effectively and to have their rights realised effectively. The groups in the network would provide that direct advice to local people and support to local people. They would link with other networks for mutual support, They would find out systematically what's working and not working from local people, and we're proposing to offer, as you'll see in a moment, the use of our POET tool to help with that, because we think this helps create a strong case and platform for local improvement. They would use that information to collectively try and influence local system improvement, and they would share what they're doing nationally, so that we can take lessons from the local, pull them together, and have a bigger voice at a national level in terms of influencing policy and practice at a national level. In terms of what the network core would offer, i.e. what In Control would offer, we would offer to help local networks to put an effective plan together. We could offer some mentoring and training to local leaders. In some situations, we could provide direct support in complex situations. One of the things that we've found is that when we get involved, we get called in when situations are particularly complex and difficult and often conflictual, and we're able to use our experience and expertise and history to help resolve those things. And very often that means not just resolving the situation for a person or a family, but helping a new pathway or a new practice or new training approaches, or better ways in which the system is working. We will look to provide useful support materials and resources. We will make connections across the networks, and those would be through primarily through e-systems, but sometimes through direct links as well, so that people who have solutions can offer them to others. We would link networks to specialist support, including sometimes legal support. We have a network of legal supporters who could help with that, and we're looking to bring in some other resource on that basis. I mentioned that we would support local research using the personal outcomes evaluation tool, which asks people and families what's working and not working in order to plan local improvement. So that's essentially what we're proposing to do in a quick run through, and the kind of questions that we're asking ourselves and that we'd like to ask you and others that we're talking to. We had a meeting in London with a bunch of people last week. We're going to be putting materials out on social media and so on to explore these questions. In order to be as useful as we can, we need to be really clear what are the biggest obstacles to people getting real self-directed support at a local level that people are struggling with, and where we could add some value, or where a national network connecting networks to networks might be most useful at a local level. So yes, there may be obstacles at a local level. Some of those might be best tackled by people already working at a local level, but there might be some added value that a national network could offer. What is that added value? What might be the challenges to developing such a network that we need to be aware of in planning and trying to make it happen? Funding will always be an issue. In the first instance, we are looking to get some grant funding. We've got a little bit of grant funding from one organisation, which is our first success on this. We'll look for grant funding to kick it off, but then we'll need to be looking at other ways of sustaining a network going forward, although we're trying to operate this at a very low cost level. What are those useful links to other activities or offers that are being made nationally that could link into a national network and make it increasingly effective? And what other ideas have people got and suggestions to us as we develop this, or indeed offers to help as well? So in a second, we'd like to ask you to ask any questions or offer any thoughts based around those questions or any other reflections that you've got. But just to say, in terms of next steps, we are working hard on this, and our plan is to take the first quarter of the next year to plan and organise it with an intention to launch with the first few sites in the spring. Ideally, we'll be looking to start with about 10 places, and currently we're exploring with friends and colleagues where those places might be, and get going. So I